You see yourself, huh?
Yeah. So we're learning the mamer Kimei Teis Chameretz Mitzrayim Arenu Niflois Tovshin and Bais. This is a mamer that the Rebbe was Magia and gave out to print for Yud Aleph Nissan Zion.
It's Mughal.
It's a Muga, yeah, a Muga mamer. So we're coming up from Purim. Everybody knows the word of Purim, the Baal Shem Tov word. It says in the Gemara, Hakeres Megillah Lemafreya Yatza. Perhaps it's a Mishnah. If somebody reads the Megillah not in the correct order, in other words, he reads the last parak first and the first prakim later, he's not Yaitza. It must be, the Megillah must be read on its order from the beginning to the end. So the Baal Shem Tov teaches Hakeres Megillah Lemafreya, somebody who reads the Megillah backwards. In other words, he reads it as if it's something that happened a long time ago. Amol Geben Amaisa mit Mordechai and Esther and Haman in Shushan Abira. A long time ago, something happened in Purim, but it's not relevant. It has nothing to do with my life today. So it says the Baal Shem Tov, La Yotze, you're not Yaitze, you missed the whole meaning of Purim, just flew right by you, you didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the meaning of the Megillah, that's not the meaning of Purim.
Yeah.
Is dezelfde zaak eigenlijk met Alts. Het is dezelfde zaak is met Pesach. That Pesach is not only something that happened 3,000 or whatever amount of years ago. It's not only something that's part of our history, but it's something that's relevant to our day-to-day lives, where we sit today, as we are here. And in this mamer, the Rebbe explains to us what does Pesach today mean? What's the relevance of Pesach today, and what's the relevance of Pesach to every single day of the year? Ki yadua, the word that the Yomim Tovim are not only something that happen once a year, but each Yom Tov brings its ideas to the entire year. So Pesach is also relevant to every single year, to every single day of the year, and how it all leads to Mashiach, which of course is the purpose of our creation, which is the purpose of the entire world. So hopefully, if we do our job well with this mamer, when we sit down Pesach for the Seder, we'll have something to live with, and then we'll be able to carry it with us the entire year. So let's begin the mamer. It says in the pasuk in Navi, Kimei Teis Chameretz Mitzrayim, but then in the Flois, this is a nevuah when you get to the Geula HaSidah, that the Navi says that in the time when Mashiach will come, I will show you miracles. I'll show you wonders, just like the wonders that occurred in the days when I took you out of Mitzrayim. And it's known the Zayir's question, which was brought down in the mamer of our rabbi. Why does the pasuk say Kimei as the days that you left Mitzrayim? We left Mitzrayim and it occurred in one day. In one moment, actually, we just exited. And we find in other psukim that describe the Yitzia, the exodus from Mitzrayim. We're going to get to the mitzvah of remembering Yitzias Mitzrayim. How does he describe it? Remember this day, not day's day. Remember this day in which you left Mitzrayim. And then another pasuk says, so that you may remember the day that you left Mitzrayim. Why in the Navi does he describe Yetzias Mitzrayim as something that occurred over the course of days, of several days? So the first question. We also have to understand just what does the pasuk mean. Just what does the pasuk mean when it says that by the Geula HaSidah in the times of Mashiach, you will see wonders just like the wonders that you saw when we left Mitzrayim. The simple understanding of the pasuk, the literal understanding of the pasuk is that the Geula of Mashiach, which will come immediately, speedily in our days through Melech HaMashiach, will also be in a very wondrous way. It won't be in a natural way. There will be many, many nisim that will happen in the world of Bnei Yisrael and the world at large, just like when the Yidden left Mitzrayim, they didn't just walk out in a natural way, but many, many nisim and flows happened that brought about their leaving Mitzrayim. So too, it will be when we leave this galus. Move on. The Rebbe asks, it's explained in several psukim. and in Chazal B'chlalos, in Gemara and in Rishonim, everywhere. Shadavke Hagula Asidati Gula Shlema Shein Achrei Galos. The Davke, the Gula Asidah, the Gula of Mashiach, will be a complete and ultimate redemption, which will not have any gulas after it. Mashe'enk in Hagula di Yitzias Mitzrayim. On the other hand, the Gula of Yitzias Mitzrayim, even though it was a Gula, even though the Yidden left Mitzrayim, it was not the ultimate Gula. It was not the complete Gula. B'haraya, we're sitting here today and we're in Golas. If the Gula, if the redemption from Mitzrayim was a true and ultimate redemption, we wouldn't be in Golas now. So according to this, we understand that the Geula of Mashiach, which will never have any Golas after it, is the ultimate redemption. Mashenk in the Geula of Mitzrayim. So according to this, the Geula of Mashiach will be much higher than the Geula from Mitzrayim. Therefore, according to one opinion in Gemara, you don't even mention Yitzias Mitzrayim in the days of Mashiach, because the Geula, the matziv, the condition of the world when Mashiach will come will be so beyond anything that existed before, including the condition of the world that existed by Yitzias Mitzrayim. So therefore, you won't even mention it. What's there to mention? The happiness and the goodness and the revelation of Elikus that will be when Mashiach will be here will surpass and exceed by far anything that we had before. So there's nothing special in mentioning it. And even the second opinion of Gemara that says that you do mention Yitzias Mitzrayim even in the days of Mashiach. So he has to come to a special limud. Yeah, we say in the Haggadah, Kimei Tzeitzcha Meretz Mitzrayim, not Kimei Tzeitzcha, Lamantis Keshem Tzeitzcha Mitzrayim, Kol Yimei Chayecha, Yimei Chayecha, Yom Kol Yimei Chayecha, Lavi Alelis, and the other day is Kol Yimei Chayecha, Lavi L'meis HaMashiach. So the pasuk has to explicitly tell us that you have to mention the Geula of Mitzrayim even in the times of Mashiach. So we see from this that it's a novelty, it's something that's unexpected. So because the Geula of Mashiach will be much greater than the Geula of Mitzrayim. So why does the pasuk in Navi describe the Exodus from this Galus, the redemption from this Galus, as something that's like the Exodus from Mitzrayim? That what's going to be so great when Mashiach will come, that also then we will see neflois, we will see wonders the way we saw, just as we saw by Yitzias Mitzrayim. L'chura, it's not a correct description. When Mashiach will come, we will see much greater wonders than what we saw during Yitzias, at the time of Yitzias Mitzrayim. David says the question is really much stronger. The Melashin HaKasuv Kimei Tzeitzcha Meretz Mitzrayim Renu Niflois Mashma Shaniflois Shahayu B'Yimei Tzeitzcha Meretz Mitzrayim Hem HaSchola V'HaSheirish Gam Al HaNiflois Shiyu B'Gula HaSiddur. From the Lashon of the pasuk, that it says that you had wonders when Mashiach will come, and you will continue to see similar wonders. You had wonders by Yitzias Mitzrayim, and you will continue to see similar wonders when Mashiach will come. It's mashma that the wonders of Yitzias Mitzrayim are the source and the beginning of the wonders that will come when Mashiach will come. In other words, that the Iker Niflois were when we left Mitzrayim, and what happens when Mashiach will come, it makes it sound like it's just a continuation and another level in the Yitzia, in the Niflois of Yitzias Mitzrayim. And how can that be? How does that make any sense? From this, it's understood that there's a maila in the Geula of Yitzias Mitzrayim, even compared to the Geula of Asid Lavi. And with that, Taka, it makes sense why Maskir in Yitzias Mitzrayim L'meis HaMashiach. Because there's something in Yitzias Mitzrayim, Taka, but what kind of sense does it make? The revelation of Elikus, the amount of goodness and the amount of happiness that will be here in this world when Mashiach will come, will be far greater than what was during Yitzias Mitzrayim. So what are we saying over here? That the wonders of Mashiach will be similar, or will even be an outgrowth of the wonders of Yitzias Mitzrayim. Okay, so we have a pasuk, and we have a question: why does it take Kimei Teischa? Makes it sound like the Yitzias Mitzrayim occurred over several days. And the second difficulty with the pasuk is then it makes it sound like that the wonders when Mashiach will come will be on a level, or even not only on a level, but the sachak will be nothing more than a continuation of the wonders of Yetzias Mitzrayim. The situation is the opposite. That when Mashiach will come, those wonders will be much greater and much higher than anything that happened during Yetzias Mitzrayim.
Maybe you could say that it refers to the days. Why does it say days, not day? Because for 40 years, they traveled on the sea, around the sea. So it was days, it was years.
Or you could ask your question maybe because it says that the Yetzias Mitzrayim wasn't complete until Kriyas Yamsuf.
Yeah. Or it's Mamer Sinai.
Or Mamer HaSinai. Oh, so Mamer HaSinai is taka.
He probably talks about man and about the bear.
But Mamer HaSinai, yeah. So we'll get to the answer, taka. But there's much more. There's much more than that. There's a much larger message in the words Kimei Teischa, that it's many days, like we'll see in the Mamer inside. And the kernel, the point of the explanation in this is that in this pasuk that says that the niflois of the Gula Hasidah will be like the niflois of Mitzrayim, there's two ways to teach this pasuk. Pirush Alef, the first explanation, which is the explanation that we used previously earlier in Eis Alef, Shegula Hasidah Tiyakeh Gula D'Yetzias Mitzrayim, that the Gula of Mashiach will be like the Gula of Mitzrayim, like we said before, Shegam Oz Yeran in place K'mei Gula D'Yetzias Mitzrayim, that just like they used to perform tremendous miracles and wonders for us when we left Mitzrayim, so too when we leave this Galus, they will perform for us tremendous miracles. Will be in a miraculous way. Upirush bais, however, there's also a second explanation. That the wonders of Mashiach will be so great that even compared to the nissim that we saw during Yetzias Mitzrayim, we will say these are nissim compared to them. In other words, just like what do we call a nes? Something that's commonplace. When we're used to the world running in a certain way, in an expected way, in a way that's not considered great. It's in a way that's considered normal and regular. And then you have a nes. The nes is something far beyond that. So we call that the niflois. It's a wonder. It's something that we can't quite wrap our head around. It's beyond us. That's how great it is. So the nissim of the Gula HaSidah will be so much greater than the nissim of Yetzias Mitzrayim that we'll call them wonders compared to those nissim. Compared to the nissim of the Gula HaSidah, the wonders of Yetzias Mitzrayim are rather regular, normal occurrences and events. That's the second pirush in the pasuk Kimei Teischa. According to this pirush, you would teach the pasuk Kimei Teischa Meretz Mitzrayim Renu Niflois, just like you saw Niflois, things that you've never seen before when you left Mitzrayim. So too when Mashiach will come, you will see things that you never saw even when you left Mitzrayim. There will be again a situation in the world where the Eibishter will perform nissim in a way that will be things that never ever occurred before, not even in the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim. And that brings the two perushim together over here. I knew the Hagam shebechlolos haniflois to Gula Hasidah in Demis, haniflois to Gula Mitzrayim kapirush hapashut, even though, generally speaking, the wonders of Mashiach will be similar to the wonders of the Gula of Mitzrayim as the simple understanding of the pasuk, as the literal understanding of the pasuk is nevertheless, in these wonders themselves that are similar to the wonders of Mitzrayim, there will be an advantage, there will be something special and unique about the wonders of Mashiach, of the times of Mashiach, of the Gula of Mashiach, the ad and this advantage and this uniqueness of those wonders of Mashiach will be so great that they will be wonders even compared to the wonders of Yetzias Mitzrayim. So we have over here this idea that you have a great revelation, a great gilui milamayla. This is the idea of the niflois is a gilui milamayla, and we already had a gilui milamayla during the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim. We will have an even greater gilui when Mashiach will come. it will be a similar gilui, like the simple understanding of the pasuk, like the literal understanding of the pasuk. It will be similar to what happened when we left Mitzrayim. However, they will be on such a high level, on so much of a higher level, that they will be wonders even compared to the wonders of Mitzrayim. So it will be the same thing, yet on a much higher level. That's the beer that the Rebbe gives over here. And he's going to explain it now going forward. To explain the Maila, the greatness of the wonders of La'asid Lave, of the time to come when Mashiach comes. Using the words of Kabbalah, the vocabulary of Kabbalah, it's known. In Zayir, it's described, it's explained that during the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Yidden had to be redeemed and taken out of 49 gates of Klippah. Right? It's explained that when the Yidden were in Galus Mitzrayim, so over the course of many years, and due to the harshness of the Galus, the Yidden sunk, Rahman al-Islam, lower and lower into the Klippos that were in Mitzrayim, and they went down into 49 gates, each gate worse than the one that came before it, in a lower level, and they were sunk deeper and deeper and deeper in the Klippos. Just like with a person in his life, it could be that he's facing challenges. However, those challenges don't reach, so they don't overtake him so completely. For example, there could be a person who finds himself that due to financial constraints, he can't do everything that he wants to do. He wants to go on a trip, he wants to buy some clothing, he wants to buy a new car or whatever it is. He's limited in what he could do. And the limitations could be in a much deeper way also. There are some things that he wants to accomplish and achieve in this world. He has ambitions to do something good in this world, and he can't execute, he can't see his vision through because of his financial constraints or other constraints. But then you can have a deeper type of a golus, where the person is not only limited by that, but he's also physically limited, that he's sent into golus somewhere, he's exiled, he's forced to live someplace, in a place far away from civilization, far away from society, the way they used to do in Russia. They used to send people into Siberia. But at least over here, he has the freedom to live in a house, to be a little bit independent, to go out. In other words, we didn't take away all of his freedoms. Then a person could be in prison, and in the prison itself, he could be in a lower level. Until in prison itself, he can be in solitary confinement, which is the biggest rishus that could possibly be imagined. Every single person, like the Rebbe explains in Sichos, the Rebbe was very unhappy. Says that the whole idea of prison is not found in Torah. It's found in an extremely limited way, this idea of prison. You have it, for example, if there's somebody that needs to be killed and you have to make sure he doesn't run away, you don't know which missa, which type of missa he's chayiv in, so Bezdin locks him up. You have other exceptions, but this idea of punishment through imprisonment, through taking a person and saying that you have no opportunity to exercise to exercise your purpose, to see through every single person, the essence of his being is the shlichus that the Eibishter created him here in this world for. What's the essence of a person? The essence of a person is the reason why he's here. If there wasn't the reason why he's here, he wouldn't be created. In other words, his entire existence is dependent on the reason for which he was created. And when you take somebody and you lock him up in prison, he can't express anything of himself. In other words, he can't see his mission through. He can't use his skills and opportunities to fulfill his mission. In other words, you're destroying his entire existence. That's the Rebbe's view on prison. So you see, it's a much deeper level of galus, of klippos. A person could be sunk through. So too by Yetzias Mitzrayim, you have in galus Mitzrayim, you have the Memtes Sharm, you have 49 gates of klippah, where in the lower, in the earlier gates, the person isn't yet so completely taken over and locked up by the klippos, and slowly the person sinks one gate through another gate until he reaches the 49th level. And like it says, that there's a 50th shar of klippah, And if the Yidden would have fallen into that 50th shar of Lumazah, it would be impossible to redeem them. And that's why Leikvan Keherafine, the Eibster took them out immediately, because if you would have left them there one moment, they would have sunk even into the 50th level. And a situation of Gula would have never been possible. They would have been completely lost, Rahman al-Islam, and we wouldn't be here. So in Yitzias Mitzrayim, the Eibster had to take the Yidden out of 49 gates of Klippah, 49 levels of descent into Klippah. And this is why immediately after the Yidden left Mitzrayim, they started immediately the Aveda of Sfiras HaEmer. In each day of Sfiras HaEmer, of which we have 49 days, we leave another gate of Lu'umazeh. So I'm sure it's explained in other places. I have a vague memory, but the idea in general is that we left Mitzrayim in one day. The Eibster took us out. However, nevertheless, we still had to work on each gate that we were once. Before the Eibster took us out of Mitzrayim, there was something left in leaving that, in leaving those gates. And each day of Yitzias Mitzrayim, of Sfiras HaEmer, the 49 days, takes us out another level and another level. We go through all the spheres one after the other. How did the Eibster take us out of the 49 levels of Klippus? It was through the 50 levels, the 50 gates of Binah. And even though we only have 49 days, it's explained in other places that there's Tispru Chamishim Yom, the Pasuk says. We count 49 days, but the Pasuk calls it Chamishim Yom because there's the 50th level of Binah. And because Yitzias Mitzrayim happened as a result of the revelation of the 50 gates, the 50 levels of Binah, of drawing them down, so therefore Yitzias Mitzrayim is mentioned 50 times. Each time, Keneged Nun Shari Binah, each time the Yitzias Mitzrayim is mentioned corresponds to what? To another level, to a higher level of the Sha'arim of Binah. And Rebbe explains as follows: when we say that there are 50 gates of Binah, so there's several levels in these 50 gates of Binah. We'll explain as we go along as best as we could. Nun Shari Binah Kameshanim Shachin b'Malchus. The 50 gates of Binah, the way they're drawn down into Malchus. And this is the idea that's brought down in Kabbalah. That from Yovel, from Binah, Yovel was also 50 years, is Nimshach. It's drawn down into the level of Malchus. Ulamayla Yesin, and then you have the Nun Shari Binah, the way they stand in a higher level, in a higher form. Hanun Shari Binah Kameshem B'Mekemem B'Binah. The 50 gates of Binah as they are in their own place, the way they are in Binah. Ulamayla Yeser, and then you have the 50 gates of Binah, the way they stand in a higher level, in a higher manner. Kameshem Klulim B'Shar Hanun B'Vchinas HaKeser. The 50 gates of Binah, the way they are all included in the highest 50th level of Binah, which this is already the level of Keser. Ubekeser Gufa B'Vchinas Atik, and in Keser itself, in the level of Atik. So what's he saying over here? I'll start not in the order that he says it. Was ist Binah? Weiß ich nicht. Was ist Keser? Yeah, but so there's a beautiful Yechidus described with the Alter Rebbe called in Moshe Velenke. Moshe Velenke was a godless Demeichin. He was a mind, a tremendous mind. And the Alter Rebbe called him into Yechidus, where he asked him while he was in Yechidus, he asked him, "Was is on the Neshama?" I have to look inside again. I'll say it with all its details. Mitzvah Hashem. Was is on the Neshama? Alter Rebbe used to speak with a niggin, and Moshe Velenke didn't answer. So Alter Rebbe asked him again, "Boss is on the Shama," and he didn't answer. He asked him a third time, he still didn't answer. So the Alter Rebbe asked him, "Why aren't you answering?" So he said, "Ich weiß nicht." So the Alter Rebbe tells him, "When ich weiß, yeah." But there's a beautiful beer. The Alter Rebbe gives a beautiful beer over there. I don't want to say it now because I don't remember it. Mitzvah Hashem, we'll find an opportunity to say it. I'll look inside. Was ist Binah, weiß ich nicht. But without understanding what Bina itself is, this general idea that you have a certain level, you have a certain idea, a certain concept, a certain existence, and it exists where it exists. In other words, it's the 50 sharim of Bina, the way they are. Then you have the way they're brought somewhere else. They're drawn down, they're brought to a new place. So that's the way you have the Nun Shari Bina, the way they stand on a lower level. Then the opposite is also true. You have the Nun Shari Bina, the way they stand in their source, where they came from. So you have Bechlos, you have three ways, three madregas in anything really. The way it stands in its source, where it came from, the way it stands where it is as it is, and the way it's drawn down to somewhere else. To give a mashal. If somebody has a certain emotion, somebody has a certain feeling, a feeling of love to somebody else, or a feeling of distance, Rahman al-Islam, to somebody else, or to some other thing. This feeling, where did it come from? What's its nature? So let's say somebody has a friend and he understands that this friend is a very refined person. Say he learns a lot, say he worked on himself, say he's a very generous and kind person, say he's also a very smart person who knows you could get good advice from him. He's a chevraman, he's a good businessman, he's successful. Say he's a caring person, he gets involved in different, communal affairs. He's there, he shows up to do the work. A person with so many milas. Different people can appreciate different things. Yeah, he sings well, he's humorous, he has an optimistic, positive energy, all the wonderful things that different people have. So when somebody has a friend and he understands the greatness of his friend, he understands the goodness of his friend. So this gives birth to a feeling, to an emotion of love, in other words, of closeness to his friend. He wants to be a friend with this person. He wants to be close to him. And he'll also come to his simches, and he'll come to Fabring with him, and he'll give him a gift, or he'll do him a favor when he could. He likes this person. So this is a mashal where we see like this. You have the emotion itself, the love that the person feels in his heart. You have the love, the way it stands in its source, which is his understanding of his friend's goodness. That's the source. That's what brought about this feeling of love. And then you also have the way the love is expressed in his speech and in his actions to the person. He can't actually, the love itself that he's feeling in his heart doesn't actually, go over to his friend. It's in his interactions with his friend, in the way he looks at his friend, in the way he speaks to his friend, in the vibe that he has with his friend, that what's in his heart is drawn down to a lower level, to the outside, where it ends up actually coming to his friend. And that's the way it is in everything. You have the thing the way it is itself, like the love itself that he feels in his heart. You have the way it stands in its source, which in our mashal is the understanding of the goodness of his friend. And you have the way the love is brought down to a practical level. He shows up for him. He helps him. He speaks to him. He expresses his friendship to him in so many different ways. So that's the way the love was brought down. So there's a Nun Shari Bina. You have the Nun Shari Bina themselves. You have where they came from, which this is in Arich. We're not going to get into the details. He speaks to details in Kesser and then in Pnimius Kesser. In other words, you have the Nun Shari Bina the way they are in their source. And then you have the Nun Shari Bina the way they are in Malchus, the way they're brought down further, the way they're outside of themselves. They're drawn to a lower place, to somewhere else. Clear? Make sense? Okay. So without understanding Bina, we understand a little bit what they're saying over here. So now let's see how everything falls into place with this understanding. And with this we can understand what we mean when we say that the revelations that will have been made of Yameinu Mamash when Mashiach comes will be wondrous, even compared to the wonders of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Ki nun Shari Bina. We mentioned before that in Golus Mitzrayim the Yidden were in Memtes Shari Klippet Lomazeh, and the Eibishter, to take them out, what happened by Yetzias Mitzrayim? The Eibishter gave them the revelation of the Nun Shari Bina. So these Nun Shari Bina, the revelation of the 50 gates of Bina, that the Eibishter revealed in order to bring about, to create Yetzias Mitzrayim, those are the gates of Bina themselves, and these gates, it's not actually the way they are at their own level, but rather, but we couldn't get these sha'arim of bina directly, we could only get them the way they were channeled. In other words, transformed a little bit, or not transformed, but translated and brought down to a lower level so that we could relate to them through Malchus. Masha'enkin la'asid lava, and la'asid lava, it won't be that way. We will have the revelation of the 50 sha'arim, the 50 gates of Bina. Not only that we will have them themselves, but we'll have the even higher revelation of the 50 gates of Bina the way they are in their source. And furthermore, in Keser itself, the revelation or the drawing down of the 50 gates of Bina will be from Atik, which in general is called Pnimius HaKeser. Arich is Chetzenius HaKeser. Atik is Pnimius HaKeser. Atik Gufa, Mimchinas Pnimius Atik, and within Atik itself, it will be from the Pnimius of Atik itself. I'm missing over here some muscle or something to describe it, but the general idea I think is clear and simple. That when by Yetzias Mitzrayim we had the revelation of the 50 gates of Bina, but only the way they were able to be, when after being translated to us coming through Malchus. So we didn't even have the revelation of the 50 gates of Bina. When Mashiach will come, not only will we have more than that, but we will go even beyond the 50 gates of Bina themselves. Will reach to the level of the 50 gates of Bina the way they are in their source. The way they are in their source. Abyssal Amashal maybe that we could give for this is, we learn a mamer of the Rebbe, so we learn a mamer of the Rebbe the way the Rebbe explained it to us. So that's the mamer itself. Then we could only take from the mamer as much as we can understand. See, even what the Rebbe put into the mamer, we can't get the full goodness of it. It's limited by our imagination, by our ability to understand what the Rebbe put into the mamer itself. Then you have the Torah of the Rebbe, you have the mamer of the Rebbe, the way it is by the Rebbe. The way it is by the Rebbe himself. Which everybody understands that if the Rebbe authored the mamer, then by the Rebbe himself, these inyanim stand in a much clearer way, in a much higher way, in a much more refined way, in a way that's beyond anything we could even dream of approaching. So we'll use that as a mashal. Yeah. So the mamer is the Nun Shari Bina themselves. The way we can understand the mamer is the way our brain translates what we see written on the page, and we see ourselves that every time we learn a mamer, we understand it deeper. And then we learn another mamer somewhere else, and we come back to the mamer that we learned. We say, wait a second. Based on what I learned somewhere else, I understand it much better. So we see in our own experience that we don't even approach the full depth of what's in the mamer itself. And then you have the mamer the way it is in Seichel Harav, the way the mamer is by the Rebbe himself, which is it's other Asius. It's a whole other world. It's not like the same thing, but the Rebbe understands it better. It's a in ganzen an andere Eifin. It's in a whole other way. So al derech zeh with the Nun Shari Bina, when Mashiach will come, we will receive the Gili, the revelation of Kilu Neymar, the way the mamer is by the Rebbe. We will receive the revelation of the Nun Shari Bina, the way they are by Emetz and Pnimius Atik. And Pnimius of Pnimius of Keser. And that, so with this, we're starting to understand already. That's Kimei Tzeitz Chamer and the Flois. It's the same Gili. It's the Gili of the Nun Shari Bina, but it's in ganzen an andere Meise. It's on a much higher level. Whereas by Yetzias Mitzrayim was the Nun Shari Bina, the way they were drawn down through Malchus. When Mashiach will come, we will have the Nun Shari Bina, the way they stand at their highest form in their source and in the Pnimius of their source. Therefore, we'll put it together now. Like it says, when you get to Mashiach, that my servant, in other words, Melech HaMashiach, will succeed. That's how the Mitzvah David translates it. He will succeed. Yarum v'nasa, he will be exalted and be uplifted. Very much the Ma'id, which the word Ma'id that he adds at the end, very, so that already refers to Pnimius Atik. Over Lashon HaPri Yitzchayim, like it says in Pri Yitzchayim, which is the Kabbalah of the Arizal, Shekol HaMshachas Achshav, Himrak M'Chinas Chitzenius Atik, that all of the revelations, everything that's drawn down, that's brought to us now, is only from the level of Chitzenius Atik. B'chinas pnimius atik. La'asad love, there'll be something new that was never in the world yet, which is the revelation of pnimius atik. Okay. Nevertheless, the pasuk compares the wonders that will be when Mashiach will come to the wonders that already occurred during Yetzias Mitzrayim. So pasuk bekasov, like we mentioned in the beginning of this ice, that's the simple literal understanding of the pasuk. Because during the goal of Mashiach, we will have wonders similar, like the wonders that we had during Yetzias Mitzrayim, because also during the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim we had tremendously high and the very highest revelations, like the Rebbe Rashab explains in 9 bais. It says this lashon that Nigla Aleim Melech Malchem Lachem HaKadosh Baruch Hu V'chveido V'atzmei. So he's obviously the Eibishter, he himself, the King of Kings. In other words, he's saying that the highest level the Eibishter revealed himself to us during Yetzias Mitzrayim on his highest level. Sheb'chveido V'atzmei Dargas Achinayos B'chveido V'atzmei, referring to very high levels. They're the highest levels. But what didn't we get then? So what's going to be new when Mashiach will come? That the revelation of these levels during Yetzias Mitzrayim was transmitted to us after being translated and brought into a form that we could relate to through the level of Malchus. Like it says in the Pasuk, Hashem ala Pesach, that the Eibishter will leap over the doorway, the opening, the Pesach, Malchus, which this is a reference to Malchus. However, when Mashiach will come, we will have these same revelations, but without any garments, without being covered, like it says in the pasuk, that your master won't conceal himself anymore with garments. So even though during Yetzias Mitzrayim we had these very high revelations, the first he called them Nunshai Bin. Now he's referring to them as Nigla Melech Malchem Lachem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Ga'olam, and we had it then. However, we couldn't get it in its true form. It had to be lowered. It had to be changed a little bit, mellowed. Somehow for us, watered down in a sense. Not watered down, but somehow translated to a lower level, so that we should be able to relate to it. When Mashiach will come, we won't need that. We'll be able to get those revelations in a direct and revealed form without being enclosed, without being covered over in any way whatsoever. Good, we'll stop here. Very good.